Good evening. And the usual greeting is please turn off or silence your cell phones at this time. And welcome on behalf of the Door County League of Women Voters. Thank you for taking the time to come and hear the candidates seeking to represent you as supervisors on the Nasewaupee Town Board. I'm Tim Grawl, a member of the League, and I'm happy to be here to introduce our guests and the moderator for the evening, Mrs. Kohab. Candidate forums like this one are one part of the Door County League's nonpartisan mission to inform voters about candidates and elections in a civil, unbiased, and nonpartisan manner. Now let me introduce the candidates who are contesting for 3 seats as town supervisors. They're seated alphabetically in pairs based on the supervisor's seat for which they are running. Candidates for Supervisor 1 are Mark Hilsabeck and Bill Krueger. For Supervisor 2 are Mark Feuerstein and Don Sixel Jr. And for Supervisor 3 are Tim Smith and Jean LaPlante. Candidate LaPlante is unable to attend tonight, and he's asked us to tell you he had surgery for a detached retina. He's under doctor's care not to leave his house. So we'll read a statement by him in a few minutes along with the other opening statements. Thank all the candidates for running for office and for agreeing to take part in this forum. In a few minutes, they will have the opportunity to introduce themselves and talk about why they are running for this important position. We also want to thank and acknowledge Town of Nasewaupee and Town Clerk Jill Lau for making this forum possible. The League of Women Voters of Door County began in 1952. We are one of 20 chapters in Wisconsin and one of hundreds across the country aligned with the National League, which, by the way, celebrated its 100th birthday in 2020. The LWV is nonpartisan and never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. However, we are also a political organization of women and men dedicated to encouraging and promoting good government through informed, active participation at all levels of our democracy, local, state, and national. We seek to empower voters through activities such as candidate forums and voter registration. We also study and advocate on governmental, legislative, political, social, and environmental issues that impact our local communities. The LWV of Door County also actively works to eliminate any and all barriers to full participation within our organization, our elected governing bodies, and in the voting process and elections. Our core message is democracy is not a spectator sport, and we urge you to get in the game. We also encourage all Door County citizens, regardless of political affiliations, to consider joining the League and to help shape our efforts and advocacy. More information about the League can be found on the display table at the entry, along with a sign-up sheet to indicate if you would like to receive any updates of League activities. You can also check out our website at lwvdoorcounty.org or on Facebook. The website also has recordings of previous forums, along with lots of information about voting and League events and information. As to our candidate forums, the views expressed are solely those of the candidates and not of the League of Women Voters of Door County. This forum is not an endorsement of any candidate. Our forums are recorded. Tonight's event will be posted as soon as possible on the League of Women Voters Door County website, again, lwvdoorcounty.org, and on our Facebook page. We encourage all of you, candidates and the public, to spread the word. The forum will consist of anonymous written questions and candidates' responses. Here's a question card. Blank card, you can write in your question. We encourage you to ask questions about topics of concern. The questions must be relevant to the position of town board and must focus on issues and not on any specific candidate. Please use a separate card for each question you ask. As you finish writing your question, raise your card. A runner will pick it up and take it to the screeners. Each question will be addressed to all the candidates. A question posed to only one candidate will not be used. Questions need to be worded in a way that is unbiased and concise. Our question screeners will select questions covering a variety of issues. Finally, the League of Women Voters of Door County prides itself on organizing and moderating forums that are fair and nonpartisan. We expect and have never been disappointed in the civil manner in which the candidates and the public have conducted themselves. We know that code of conduct will be upheld here tonight. Because this is a forum and not a debate, the candidates have been instructed to only speak about and for themselves, their positions and ideas, and not reference each other. The moderator will promote a civil atmosphere in which all candidates can respond to each question effectively. Toward that goal, we ask that there be no response on the candidates' answers. No comments, cheering, jeering, clapping, or any other form of demonstration. And thank you for that. Now I want to introduce tonight's forum moderator, LWVDC Chairperson Susan Kohow.
Thank you. Good evening. As was already stated, this will be a forum, not a debate. Each candidate is offered equal time to present their responses. The candidates have agreed to the following guidelines. Candidates will introduce themselves in 2-minute opening statements. Each candidate will then be given 90 seconds to answer each question. Each question will be posed to all candidates. However, a candidate may decline to answer any question, and no question will be directed to any one person. Each candidate will then have 90 seconds for a closing statement. The candidates have drawn straws to determine who will speak first, and then the order of speaking will be alternated. League screeners will review the written questions submitted to eliminate redundancies and inappropriate questions. If the screeners do not understand the question, it will not be asked. If used, questions will be asked as they are written. A copy of all submitted questions will be sent to the candidates after the forum so they can see the concerns of all who attended. Candidates, please note the timekeepers will signal when you have 30 seconds remaining in your response, and again when it's time to stop. We ask that you conclude your thought and stop when signaled. No flash cameras, video cameras, or other visual or sound recording devices are allowed to be used during the forum except by the press and media and the forum sponsor. Candidates, you may not use any audio or video from the forum in or for commercial advertising. We will ask questions until approximately 7:45 or until we run out of questions, whichever comes first. Candidates will then make their closing remarks. We will now hear opening statements from the candidates, and we're going to give Mr. Grawl a minute to get over to the timing. And our first speaker, we will begin with Mr. Hilsabeck.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum. I think it's important for everybody to know the candidates and what they stand for. I may know some of you. My name is Mark Hilsabeck. I'm married to Cindy Hilsabeck. We have 2 adult children, and we are expecting our first grandchild later this year. Some of this you may have heard already. This was in the pulse. So I'm a local veteran who graduated from Sturgeon Bay High School in 1984. I've worked at many businesses in Door County, to include Bay Ship, Lampert's, Hatco. I did a little short stint on the Sturgeon Bay Fire Department. and I've recently retired from the Sheriff's Department. I've lived in Nasewaupee since 2002, and I guess in my opinion, this is probably the best town in Door County, especially the name, right? I mean, that's a cool name. I'm running for Nasewaupee Town Board because most of my adult life I've worked in civil service, and I believe I got a lot to offer to the residents. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Bill Krueger. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for setting this up and for the concerned citizens for coming out. I've been married to my wife, Mary, for 49 years, have 3 children, 6 grandchildren, lived here for 11 years. I worked at A.L. Smith for 30 years. I held multiple leadership positions, a union steward, negotiating committee member, helped negotiate 3 multi-million-dollar labor agreements, chairman of the new contract language committee, a co-chairman of the new quality incentive, member of the joint labor management committee. I was a liaison for the union to our customers, and I was chairman of multiple brainstorming committees. I was on the grievance committee, a grievance committee chairman. I helped prepare arbitration cases for attorneys and helped write grants for retraining program for management and union employees. Board of directors for Smith Steelworkers Credit Union, member of school board for Mount Lebanon Evangelical Lutheran Church in Milwaukee. I was always active in the community. I worked coaching football, baseball, softball, refereed boys football, umpired girls softball. I mentored Washington High School underprivileged students, and I was an auxiliary police officer in Thiensville. Currently, I'm a member at St. Peter's Evangelical Church, Sturgeon Bay. Served on many committees there. I'm current member of the new directory committee, a member of Jesus Care, and a visitation elder, and I'm a valet at Door County Medical Center. Former Nasewaupee representative to the Southern Door Fire Department Board of Directors, recording secretary for the Cemetery Committee, current member of the Board of Review, chairman of the Ad Hoc Committee for readying the new Nasewaupee Fire Department. So having spent my life working in my communities and the leadership positions I've held would help me identify needs, seek solutions, and help move Nasewaupee forward. And I would greatly appreciate your vote on April 4th so I can put this experience to use as your town supervisor.
Good evening. My name is Mark Feuerstein. I reside at 3250 Hoffman Road, which is the long dead-end road about a half-mile west of here from where we are now. In 2012, I was elected to the Door County Board of Supervisors representing the southern half of Nasewaupee and a portion of Gardner. I am running for the Nasewaupee Town Board for a 2-year term to help the town on issues a board needs to try and find a solution to. One of the current issues the current board has had to work through is the disbanding from the Southern Door Fire Department to form a standalone fire department. In 1990, I became a volunteer fireman for the Southern Door Fire Department. And because of the close location to where I lived, when the pager went off, it was the Nasewaupee station that I responded to. I left the fire department in 1999 to pursue a master's degree from UW-Oshkosh in business administration with an emphasis on financing and marketing. As we continue to move forward on the disbanding of the fire department, I feel my previous firefighters' experience, education, will help our township really figure out what is best for our township. I want to thank everyone here tonight for coming and listening.
First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to speak about the issues pertaining to our town and the impact it has on our residents. My name is Don Sixel Jr. I was born and raised on a family of dairy, beef, and grain farm, and I've resided here my entire life. After high school, during the Vietnam conflict, I enlisted in the Army and served for 10 years. During that same time, I married a local gal, have 3 grown children and 6 grandchildren. I also worked in the local industry for a few years after that. Around the early 80s, my brother and I formed an LLC and farmed for many decades until his passing. I've never shied away from public service, serving on the board of directors for the Door County Co-op for 15 years. I'm also, or was also, a council member and past president of Salem Lutheran Church. I served several years on the USDA County Committee for Farm Service Agency, plus various other town and county committees through the years. My desire to serve the town started in 1989 and went to 1995. And then again, I was elected supervisor in 2015 to present day. I hope with my experience and the desire to help this community, I humbly ask you for your support this coming election. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and as the other candidates have said, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I also appreciate all of you guys coming out this evening and the League of Women Voters putting this on. My name is Tim Smith. My wife Judy and I moved up to Door County permanently in 2001, so I've been a town resident since then. Prior to that, we were summer residents as we had a trailer down at Gitchagumi Resort down the road from where we live now. We have 2 grown daughters, and as far as why I want to get involved in the town is because it's been a beautiful place to live. It was a beautiful place to raise our daughters, and I think that I have some skills and abilities that I can help this town go forward. As far as my background, I'm retired from the Kewanee Power Station where I worked for 35 years in the engineering and operations organizations. Prior to that, I served 6 years in the U.S. Navy on aircraft carriers, Carl Vinson and USS Nimitz. As far as my background and my experience, I'm currently on the Town of Nasewaupee Board of Review. I served on the Kewanee County Board from 1995 to the year 2000. I also served on the City of Kewanee Zoning Board of Appeals, the City of Kewanee Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. Everybody has flaws, and one flaw I want you all to know about me is I have the darndest time remembering names. So if I meet you and the next time I see you, I stumble, that's why. So once again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, gentlemen. As you know, Mr. LaPlante was unable to be here, so I'm going to read the statement from him. Good evening. My name is Jean LaPlante. I've been a resident and business owner in the town of Nasewaupee since 1973. My wife of 49 years, Gloria, and I raised our 3 daughters here. I have always been concerned about the livelihood, financial well-being, land use restrictions, and safety and beautification of our community. I have completed numerous projects in the community for no charge, to include the cleaning of the beach at Haynes Park, to provide drainage, restoration of the driveway to make it accessible to beachgoers as well as boaters. I'm on my church council and in charge of property management of the church. I have installed culverts, driveway restoration, paint restoration after a fire occurred, and proper drainage to alleviate potential further flooding, all at no charge other than materials to the church. I have stayed abreast of the town's government for as long as I've lived here with my wife and daughters. I am eager and willing to be involved in the town government and looking forward to serving as the town supervisor. I would like to take this opportunity to provide my stance on current key issues in our community. 1. Zoning. While zoning may be necessary in some towns, I am not in favor of it in ours. A few people have expressed concern the town needs to adopt zoning to stop people from building homes and building away from the shoreline. This would greatly restrict what people do on their own property. We have currently a large number of land use ordinances now, and I think the town has done a good job. In my opinion, nothing has been built in the last 15 years that has not been approved by the town board that was detrimental to the community. 2. Fire department. I am all for Nasewaupee forming our own fire department. Currently, we are paying 71% of the total costs. Our share is $293,000. I believe we can do a better job while paying lower operating costs and have a better and sustainable department far into the future. We have had to take from our road budget more every year to cover the rapid increase in our share of the costs of our combined fire department. We can use any savings by putting back into our road budget. The number of members in the Southern Door Fire Department are decreasing. There are more than 20 firefighters and 7 first responders who are willing to join our fire department as soon as the relationship with the Southern Door Fire Department is dissolved. Number 3, broadband. The town is exploring costs and service to install fiber optic to each house and business in Nasewaupee. I definitely want this to be voted on by the public before any final decision is made. My goal in this position is to serve as a resource and be available for the people who live in the town of Nasewaupee. I would provide transparency in our government and would seek to provide clarity on issues and concerns. As a member of the town board, I would make my vote in the best interest for the people in the town of Nasewaupee by taking into account budgets and responsible spending. Thank you, Jean LaPlante. And now we will begin with our first question, and the first person to get the question will be Mr. Krueger. How familiar are you with the roles and workings of the town and county government?
Well, I've been coming to town board meetings for many years, not only here but also in Zanesville. I'm very well aware that there's a learning curve whenever you're a new person, so there'll be a learning curve, but I understand that the town board's responsible for creating a budget, setting the tax levies, and they're in charge of maintaining the infrastructure, which they have to identify what the needs are, like potholes and repairing and repaving and things like that. They're responsible for salting and sanding, cemeteries and parks. They create town ordinances and they enforce them. And they put money aside for future known costs, and the money is, everything's tagged, so they know exactly where it goes. And Jean is right, the tax levy keeps going up for the fire department, so they have to borrow in order to make the payments for that. So that's pretty much what I know.
Well, I shared with you that I was a county board supervisor for 2 years, so from the county level, I understand that fairly well. Have never been involved in town government. I have a father-in-law, George Whitford, that was for many years, and I guess a great-grandfather, Mellon Hoffman, that was town board chairman for many years. So, again, I've lived here since 1988. Got a rough idea what goes on here as a volunteer fireman. Certainly, I was around, the town meetings, but have a rough idea of some of the issues that the town is dealing with. So again, I think my background coming into this is going to be more coming from the county side.
Mr. Sixel?
Yes. Wow, it's an ever-changing situation. The years I've been on the board, with the changing state mandates and rules and stuff, I'm amazed what the clerk has to put up with. And of course, it feeds down to us. The general running of the town, I'm pretty much got a fact on that, but just about every other meeting, there's always something new coming along, or I learn that we're responsible for. So, it takes a lot of effort to try to maintain a lot of this information, but I'm glad I did it. So, thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Okay, from my past experience being on the Kewaunee County Board and being involved in the city of Kewaunee, the main issues you deal with is how to implement mandates coming down from other levels of government and how to address the concerns. And as far as how the town of Nasewaupee handles that, I guess my answer is I don't know, because I haven't been involved in the town, but I would think that it would be pretty much the same as what we saw on the city and the county levels. The one thing that I did think that we did well on the Kewaunee County Board is I was on the Finance and Public Property Committee, and we would budget. When we do our budgeting, we would set aside money and basically have a reserve fund. So if we had a big project come up, such as needing new computers, we wouldn't have to put that on the tax levy because we had the money there. So that is, I'm not sure if the town does that, but that is one thing that I thought would work good and would probably work good for the town. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Hilsabeck? Sure. How familiar are you with the roles and workings of the town and county government?
Well, being with working for the county for 20 years, I have a bit of a working knowledge with the county. Local government, I'm probably assuming it's going to be run pretty much the same, but I'll have to learn. This is my first run in an office, so it will be something I'll have to learn.
Okay, the next question, the first person will be Mr. Feuerstein, and it's a slightly different take. What experiences or background do you have that will make you a good and effective town supervisor?
Again, I think the little bit of experience I had at the county board level. Again, I come from an agricultural background. I have an undergrad from Platteville, got the MBA from Oshkosh. But I think having a degree in finance has at least given me the opportunity to, take a look at some numbers, ask some questions. If it's dead on, it's dead on, but I'm not afraid to ask some of those tough questions. So, like I said, being that I've been around this for a little bit, I think I'm going to be able to help the board. I think I'm going to be able to help them potentially on this fire department thing. Again, we've got to remind ourselves we are still a very rural, agriculturally based township. There's going to be things that come up regarding agriculture that I think I'm going to be able to at least give a pretty good insight. So, thank you.
All right, Mr. Sixel?
Would you please repeat?
Sure. What experiences or background do you have that will make you a good and effective town supervisor?
Well, I've had, like I told you, 16 years of prior experience on the town. We've seen a lot of things come and go. Experiences, well, it's sitting down, doing the budgets every year, and that takes time. We take care of, like Bill said, we have water parks and other things that we deal with for the health and safety of our town. We also regulate mines, which I've been involved with, major land divisions. We issue license for taverns and campgrounds, and several other things that comes across, such as land disputes and variances and what have you. So I've had quite a bit of experience in just about everything that the town has to offer. So, thank you.
All right, Mr. Smith?
I guess, well, while working at the Kewaunee Power Station, we had a program with the University of Maryland and through UW Green Bay, and I was able to get my Bachelor of Science degree in Nuclear Science and Engineering, and part of that was a minor in management. And so I've had college-level management courses, both when I was in the Navy and working at the power station. I held supervisory positions. I worked with people from a diverse backgrounds, and we worked to get projects done and achieve common goals. One thing I don't like bragging about because it kind of makes me mad, but when I was on the Kewaunee County Board, we were trying to get a jail built. And I don't know if any of you know about the recall election that occurred back in 2000, but I did get recalled, and I did lose my position there. But the thing I'm proud about is when the people were asking me for information, I was giving it to them. I was giving out information. I wasn't, trying to shelter that because I knew my job was at stake. So that's one thing I'll do is I'll be talking to people if they ask the questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hilsabeck.
In my time on the sheriff's department has made me a pretty good communicator. I know there's two sides to every story. I like to get both sides before I make a decision on which way I'm going to go. That's all I got.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Krueger.
Well, as I had said earlier, I've had 30 years' experience as a leader. 28 of the years I worked at A.L. Smith, I was in some leadership position. I've been negotiating contracts with our customers and with 6 other unions. So I know how to deal with people. I know how to research problems because, when you negotiate a contract, it's multi-level, so you have to research everything. And so I'm pretty good at that. And the brainstorming committees that I was chairman of was really important because you get the input from the people. And that would be a big help as a supervisor for Nasewaupee, is to listen and get the input from the people, and then you identify the needs, you seek the solutions, and then you help move the town forward. And I'm used to doing that. I did it for churches, I did it for A.L. Smith, and I'll continue to do so. Thank you.
All right. For our next question, we begin with Mr. Sixel. What are your views on new fiber optic in the town?
Yes, we have recently delved into looking into fiber optics. It isn't just the township, it's the whole county. And several vendors have thrown their hat in the ring for this. It's going to take several years for this to come about, but I think it's something that's needed. There's so many people that don't have service, even cell service in this county. So it's coming. It's going to take time. And one of the questions that were asked is, who's going to pay for it? Well, it's going to be very expensive, and it'll probably go right on your taxes, just like garbage pickup. But that's the way it's going to be. But we're a long ways from it yet, so don't hold your breath. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Smith?
I do think we need to improve our internet access. Like Don said, I would prefer a cell phone because I have no cell phone service at my house. But anyhow, my main concern with the broadband project is the cost of the project. When they were looking at how much it would cost, say if you had a $100,000 house, you'd be looking at $106 a year on one loan program or $166 on another loan program. Well, how many houses are assessed at $100,000? If you're at $300,000 house, you're paying $319 a year or $499 a year, and that's if the total cost is put on the tax roll. Of course, they're looking at getting grants to get that number down, but that's my main concern is the cost, because then additionally, once you get the fiber installed, after 3 to 5 years, you're going to be paying $50 or $60 for your service. So I would like to continue pursuing the broadband, but I would like to get more people involved in the decision making. Maybe take it to a referendum once we get to a final plan. Thank you.
Mr. Hilsabeck?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need some fiber optics in Nasewaupee. But the problem is going to be paying for it. I'd like to see if we can find some grants out there maybe that we could write to help pay for it, take some of the pressure off. I think that the fiber optics will also help with the cell phone issues that some people are having with the internet calling. That would probably help out a lot too. And I think fiber optics would take care of that. Thank you.
Mr. Krueger?
Well, new technology is always much better than the old technology, and fiber optics is, in my opinion, the way to go. One of the things is a safety element. Things are underground instead of above ground, so that's safer. Yes, it's going to cost some money, and there is grant money out there, but right now there's a big dispute going on between the grant givers, I guess, because, you know, they're wondering why people need it if there's cell phones and et cetera. So I think we should continue to research it. And then, you know, when we come up with a dollar figure and we got some things in concrete, keep letting the people know, like they've been doing now. The board has been really good at reporting to the members of Nasewaupee what's going on with this broadband. They even have a committee, and the guy comes and talks all the time. So let's continue to look at it, and then when we reach that point where we have to make a decision, let's let the town people vote on it. That's my stand.
Mr.
Yeah, I think
Feuerstein?
broadband is very important to our town. You know, I shared with you, I live on the end of a half-a-mile dead-end road, so you want to talk about the cost to the town, it's going to get pretty expensive to bring it to me. So I'm currently signed up to get Starlink. Currently, I use HughesNet as a satellite provider. Unfortunately, HughesNet on a morning like today when it decided to snow on my dish, internet was gone. Cell phone, I believe I live in the worst spot in Nasewaupee for cell phone reception. I've reached out a little bit. Okay, we've got others in the crowd saying they got it too. So that being said, kind of picture where my farm is. You know, I got a barn, a 40 by 80 barn that's about 62 feet off the ground on one side. I've reached out to Cellcom, that happens to be my cell phone company, just to say, can you put some kind of a little tower up on top of my barn? Now, bear in mind, the airport is this close. We can't do things like that, but certainly technology. We've got more and more people that are moving to our town that are able to work from their homes, including myself. And if this trend continues, they're going to need access to something pretty fast if they're going to be successful.
Okay, for the next question, we begin with Mr. Smith. Can you tell us about a time where you had to support a decision or policy you did not personally agree with?
Well, it's kind of hard to relate that to politics or town board or county board. So I guess from looking at my past experiences, I'd have to look at when I was a supervisor at the nuclear plant, and we had underperforming technician, and I kind of wanted to give the technician, you know, another chance to improve his performance, but my manager said that I needed to put him on a performance improvement plan. And everything that goes along with that, you know, checking up on them and talking to them, and nobody wants to, you know, have hard feelings, but that was hard for me personally, but I understood that's what management wanted, and that's what my job was to do it. So we worked through it, and I guess that's the only example I can think of right now.
Okay, Mr. Hilsabeck?
I can't really think of a time that I had a policy I didn't support, but I know that there's procedures you have to do. You know, it's for the betterment of the people, and you support that decision, whatever it may be.
Okay, Mr. Krueger?
I can't tell you, as a union officer, I can't tell you how many times there were decisions that I have to make I didn't agree with. So I'm not going to waste your time with that, but I will say that one of the biggest ones that I really had a hard time with was when we were going to a new attendance control program at A.O. Smith, and we had a pretty lenient, should I say, liberal attendance control program for many years, and attendance started getting worse, so we really had to come up with a new program. But they went the opposite way, and they came up with such a restrictive program that it took us months to finally come up with an agreement. And reluctantly, I voted in favor of it, but right till the day I retired, I did not like that program.
Mr. Feuerstein?
You know, the one short thing, while I was on county board, is I was put on a committee which was called Insurance and Benefits. And at that time, back in 2012, 13, 14, the county was going through a few issues. And unfortunately, one of the things that was kind of brought up by some of my committee members was maybe it's time that we ask the employees to pay a little more of their health insurance premiums and some things. And being that I was a former state employee, I used to be the extension agent for agriculture here in Doran-Kiwanee. I kind of felt bummed about it because even though everybody has their opinion of county workers, at the end of the day, it's a pretty tough job, people. And we're one of the counties that perhaps doesn't pay as high as some of the others, and so it was a pretty tough thing for me, knowing that I knew most of the supervisor of the departments, and so tough stuff. So, but we got through it, and I guess we're all here today.
All right, Mr. Sixel.
The word is zoning. Back in the 80s, in my last administration, there were several people wanted zoning, so we established a group. We hired Foth and Van Dyke out of Green Bay. We spent $250,000 on it and spent about a year and a half getting everybody riled up about it. I wasn't in favor of it. And then we had a referendum, and it lost 3-1. And that's one of the worst things that bug me about local politics is the residents of Nasewaupee had to spend that money, and probably none of you here even remember it, but I remember it. So that's my gripe. Thank you.
Okay. For the next one, we will begin with Mr. Hilsabeck. What are your views on the separation of the fire departments?
That was coming.
It's the answer you've all been waiting for.
I understand why. I've been doing a little research here lately because I was expecting this today. I haven't really come to a decision which way I lean towards. I understand why we want to separate. I like to get both sides of everybody's, the view of everybody before I really make a decision. I kind of came into this a little late in the game. I was here for the August town board meeting where I learned about it. It's a tough one. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I guess I'm
Okay,
still
Mr.
trying to
Krieger?
learn about it. So,
Mr. Krieger?
Well, it's not tough for me. I think the decision to separate is the right decision. As I said, I was 2 years on the board of directors. The town board, the Southern Door Fire Department Board of Directors. And I learned a lot at that time. And one of the things that has always bothered me was the tax levy. And I won't even go into the other reasons, the personal reasons between the two stations, but it bothers me that our tax levy is so high and we don't have much representation. We've got 2 members on the board of directors for the fire department from Nasewaupee, and most of the time what we said they didn't listen to, and we got shot down if something came up. But looking at the tax levy, and this is where it hurts you the most, is in your pocketbook. In 2019, these came, by the way, from the town of Nasewaupee. Oh, come on, 30 seconds already. 2008, it increased 2.89% from 19 to 20, and then it increased 18.77 to $263 in 2022, and now it increased 11%, 11.22 to $293,000. Well, this is unfair, but that's okay. So anyway, it's hitting you in your pocketbook.
Right. Mr. Feuerstein?
1980, this fire department started. Kind of learned over time. Part of the reason it started was there was a fire at same farm, burned down both the barns. A gentleman by the name of Warren Kruswick owned the farms at the time. Had a chance to meet with his insurance agent and said, maybe it's time we start thinking about this. Back in 1980, they fought about the amount that Nasewaupee had to pay versus Claybanks versus Forestville versus the town of Forestville. Back then, it was about 56%. Yeah, we've moved to 71, 72% now. I get it. But I was a fireman, and I'm old, and I'm not a fireman anymore. And I want you to really think about where this new talent is going to come from to be our volunteers. I've shared before, I have a son that's a lineman for public service. Within a few short years, he most likely will be living at my farm. I asked him, you want to be a fireman? He's like, Dad, I work for public service. I get called out just about every fire there is. So I'm just worried as an individual, that we're going to have enough people to help us.
All right. Mr. Sixel?
Yes, this issue about fire department isn't just a recent thing. It's been going on for several years. It's a cultural thing, I think, between the gentlemen down there. And like Bill says, it's the representation we have on the board. With two people, there's no incentive for the other side, shall I say, to save any money, because we have no discretion over it. It's rough. We can't change the tax levy. 71% is what it is. And as far as people, being on the board, I have a little more insight on this, and we've been talking, and we seem to think that we are going to be well set with people. Not only that, but our first responders, we seem to have a fair enough. So we're going to go ahead with that, and I think it's the right thing to do. I think we can handle it. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Well, personally, when I first heard about it late last summer, I thought, well, come on, can't we all get along? And to tell you the truth, I don't know as much as I probably should know about what's going on, but I've talked to various individuals, and I understand that the main issue comes down to as has been stated, the representation and the finances. And I understand that we're working on the transition, and my feeling is if we transition and we do everything appropriately, the state's not going to let us do something that's not correct. But I just want to keep the lines of communication open since people keep having questions about it, and somehow we need to get this information out to people. But I believe a lot of time has been put into it, and just so we make everybody aware of where we're going forward, and we'll make sure we'll do things right. Thank you.
All right, the next question goes first to Mr. Krueger. It's kind of a follow-up. Do you feel a decision as important as leaving the Southern Door Fire Department should have been put to a referendum by the voters?
No, I don't think so, because it's not that I don't want the people to vote on it. It's just that I was not on the board, so I was part of the citizenry. There was so much information that is behind all of this that they don't know, and there's a lot of misinformation going out there right now about, for instance, will we have enough firefighters? Well, we've got a list of 17 currently that are assigned to the station, and we got a list of about 12 more that are willing to come on, and we got 5 or 6 EMTs that are ready to sign up. So that's not going to be an issue, but that's part of the misinformation that's out there. And the other one is that we won't have anybody And if your house starts on fire, by the time Forestville gets here, your house will be burned down. And it's a scare tactics. So it's not true. And so they didn't know that. So that's why I'm saying, if they would have voted on it, they would have voted on emotions and misinformation. And the board knew a whole lot more, and they made the right decision.
All right, Mr. Feuerstein?
Would you repeat the question again?
Sure. Do you feel a decision as important as leaving the Southern Door Fire Department should have been put to a referendum by the voters?
100%. That's it?
That's it? Okay. Mr. Sixel?
I don't think so. Our forefathers set up this situation where your town representatives would take care of this issue. I think the main issue here too is if people are worried about the money, given the money that we're going to save by not sending it south, and I don't know if a lot of the residents know, but we have a slush fund in the town that will take care of quite a bit of this. So we're not worried about the money part. So thank you.
All right, and Mr. Smith?
Well, in short, yes, this is a very important decision, and I agree that you elect representatives and you can't go to referendums for every little thing. But I think that, yes, it should have went to referendum. Yes, we, should have gotten more information out there somehow to let people know both sides of the issues. Because, like I said, I didn't hear about it till it was almost a done deal, and maybe that's part of my fault for not asking the questions. But the more we can get out there, the more opportunities we give to people so they can understand what's going on in the town.
All right, and Mr. Hilsabeck?
Yeah, I believe it should have went to a referendum. I think the town of Nasewaupee should have put some information out, whether it's a mailer to every resident, kind of to explain their side of it. That should clear up some of the misinformation that Bill is talking about. It's a big decision, and we're all affected by it. I want to make sure somebody's going to be there at my house, if it goes up in flames, I should say, not when, but. So yeah, I think it should have went to a referendum with some more information given to the citizens.
Okay, one more related question, and this one we begin with Mr. Feuerstein. What ideas do you have to encourage residents to become firefighters?
Well, I tried to talk to my own child. And that didn't go real good for me. As I sit up here, I was one of these, okay? So, think about when I started this. We had a program called Mod 1, Mod 2. So that required me to have to oftentimes go to Sturgeon Bay for evening training. Again, was willing to do it, did it. Back in the day when I was a fireman, we had some pretty good card games here. It's a big commitment. The pager goes off in the middle of the night. You have no idea really what you're going to get. Granted, I've been told we haven't had, bad fires lately. Well, true. I just don't want my farm to ever burn down. I've got a couple 120-year-old buildings that I spent a lot of money rebuilding. So that's where I'm at.
All right, Mr. Sixel?
Would you repeat, please?
Sure. What ideas do you have to encourage residents to become firefighters?
Well, the only thing you can do is just keep talking to the younger generation. I know I was so appreciative. In '91, my place burnt down. And it's unbelievable, the people that showed up and the caring that they have. It is truly, these people are special. There's no doubt about it. And we have to support them. That's all I got to say.
All right, Mr. Smith?
Somehow we have to make these people feel like they're valued. I went through fire training both in the Navy and while working at the power plants. And I could tell you that live fire exercise in that concrete building, I went through a 15-minute bottle of air in probably 3.5 minutes. My buzzer was going off. So it's a job I would not want to do. So we have to make these people, our first responders and volunteer firefighters feel like they're really helping us out and kind of pump them up and like Mark was saying, maybe make it fun. Maybe make it so they can get together on a weekly basis and do whatever, play cards or whatever, or have a cookout instead of just the constant training. So how we do that, I don't know, but that's where I think we need to go forward.
Mr. Hilsabeck?
I agree with Don. I think we need to start hit the younger generation, whether it's seniors in high school, see who's interested in it and maximize their interest in it. Maybe have them come out to the fire station on a weekend and look at the trucks, maybe operate them. When I was in the sheriff's department, we used to have an emergency vehicle day that we had over at the airport. That really brought a lot of people in, and I think we need to do things like that. Maybe have gatherings here at the fire department to make them feel like this is a family, this town is a family. I'm sure that's going to interest some people. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Krueger?
Well, the ad hoc committee that's trying to get the new fire department ready by October 1st, 2024, has got language now. Well, the Southern Door Fire Department had it too, to have the high school kids participate in training. There'll be restrictions, of course, for the kids, but anyway, that program is opening up so that they'll be able to reach the young people. And I believe there's plenty that the fire department itself can do and does. You have firemen and women right now that are talking to the young people all the time. That's why we got this list of people, that are ready to come aboard. So you're right, we have to keep the communications open with these young people because they're the future of the fire department, let's face it. And I think it's working pretty good. We could have open houses at the fire department, going along with what you said, Mark, and invite the public and bring their kids. And Mark, Scott took a truck once to pick his kid up from school, and that was a big thing because all the kids saw the fire truck. So it just generates interest. Thank you.
All right, the next question, we begin with Mr. Sixel. What is your position on current zoning regulations? Would you like to see changes?
Well, good question. We in Nasewaupee have never endorsed county zoning or any zoning for that matter. We feel as though that we've done historically a very good job in controlling land issues through complaint-based and basically ordinance-based, and we have a lot of land-based ordinances. And we generally can work things out pretty well. A lot of people complain about these storage sheds going up. Well, there's a lot of towns in this area that have zoning that have storage sheds. So, you're not going to stop that type of thing. So, no, basically, zoning does have some good attributes, but as a whole, I think that people still want control of their property, and for that, I would never vote for zoning now. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
My position on zoning regulations is that we need to look at it because, I don't like telling people, or I don't think the town should tell people what they can do with their property, but you don't want a storage building right next to your house. There's a lot of people who are building storage buildings and then putting living quarters in them. So those are a couple of things. But the main thing, whenever you do zoning, is you just want to make sure it's fair to everybody. You want to take everybody's opinion into consideration. And so it needs to be looked at. Do we need to enact it right away? I don't think so, but you need to at least study it, so if something goes downhill fast, you got something in your back pocket to bring to the table.
All right, Mr. Hilsabeck.
I'm not in favor of zoning, to some extent. I believe that the township or people should not tell me what I can do on my property. However, if my neighbor is going to do something on his property that's going to affect mine, then I think the township should step in and say something. As an example, I forget the year, it was like 2005 or something like that. They wanted to put a stone quarry at the end of our road, on Cloverleaf Road. And the concern was the blasting that was going to affect our drinking water. That's happened in the past. In that instance, I would, yeah, zoning, because you're affecting my drinking water. I think that's a problem. If my neighbor wants to put up maybe not a storage building, but a huge pole barn, I think that's fine. That's your property, you do it. But as soon as it affects me and my property, I think there should be something in play that's going to help with that. What that is, I do not know, but thank you.
All right, Mr. Krueger.
Well, having come from several communities where they had zoning, I'm totally against it because, it starts out with that same old rhetoric, common sense zoning, okay, that's okay. But what it ends up to be is it's a very divisive thing. It divides neighborhoods, it divides townships, and it creates little squads of squealers that go to the town board or the city council and say, oh, this guy did this guy did that. And I'm not in favor of that. We lose enough freedoms with the federal government. We don't need to start taking away our freedoms in our local municipalities by zoning it.
Okay. This is our last question, and it will begin with Mr. Smith.
Mr. Feuerstein had a chance to answer.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody's paying attention to me. I'm sorry, Mr. Feuerstein. I even marked it off.
They don't want to hear you, Mark.
No. I apologize. I blew it, so go for it.
My farm is the headwaters of Larson's Creek. And so Larson's Creek runs through all of my property. So I am affected by county zoning just as those who might be from the waterfront are. I happen to live on the end of a dead-end road. I could sit back there for days and not even know other people exist. But again, as we look at the landscape and unfortunately see some things that become unsightly in our town, you begin to ask the serious question, is this really right? Now, hey, like I said, I've spent a lot of money fixing up my buildings and I'm pretty proud of it. When you go past some places and you really ask the tough questions, really? But, that's their choice. So, am I in favor of zoning? Absolutely not. But if things start to get out of hand and we can't get control of it, that is an option.
Thank you, and I really do apologize. I'm becoming blurred with my checks on the sheet here.
I get it.
All right, so we have come to the point, though, that we will have run out of questions. And so this last question goes first to Mr. Smith. Let me double check. Yes. What are your views on large dairy farms, waste and groundwater?
Well, large dairy farms, if done responsibly, I have no issue with it. The town needs to look at how the manure is handled, and I'm sure there's all different kinds of regulations on that. And as long as we enforce those regulations, which are set up for it to be safe, everything should be fine. Now, I'm not living in a dreamland where I know that's going to happen because I know Kewaunee County has had issues with large dairy farms and groundwater. I don't think, I know enough about it to comment any further, but I guess I'm putting my trust in the existing laws that are out there that currently control these types of activities.
All right. Mr. Hilsabeck?
I'm not against the large farms, but I do think there should be a cap on how many livestock they can have, just because of the waste that they produce. And as everybody knows, Door County is pretty much limestone, so anything that goes in the ground is going to end up in our drinking water at some time. Hopefully there's enough soil and things to filter all that bad stuff out. You know, working, again, going back to my days on the sheriff's department, I know we've taken many calls from people that are concerned about large farmers putting the cattle waste on property next to them, and I don't know who, I guess I don't know who watches that. I've always thought that was a concern, because who's watching these big farmers as they're putting that stuff out there, and who's keeping track of the gallons and gallons of waste that they're putting out there? So I think if they could somehow cap the size of the livestock that they have, I would be okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Krueger?
Well, I'm not opposed to large farms. I like farms. I've always liked farms my whole life. I think they're doing, between the state government and the local farmers, I think they're working hard to control the manure spillages or seepages and whatnot. And I think, you know, taking away the farms or reducing the size of them isn't really the answer. The answer is let's tackle the problem that's there and figure out a way we can fix it so that the farmers can continue. That's all I have.
Mr. Feuerstein? I'm looking at you.
Well, I'm going to announce to the crowd, I work for the large farm in Maplewood, Jersey Land Dairy. I'm their crop consultant. My farm is, I'm blessed that my farm is on that 60 feet of clay that the landfill was used. I'll invite manure to my farm every day because it's fertilizer, people. Technology today is taking the fears away of things like bacteria. Hey, over applications, we're going to get rain, we're going to have issues. I get it. But I don't think there's a farm in Door County that can get manure that wouldn't want to get manure just based on all the other things, the cost of fertilizer. So I had manure put on my farm in the spring of 2022. And we had a pretty big crop. You know, we had about 75 bushel soybeans, which county average is 41. Where did it come from? Tell me. I'm thinking the fertility from the manure certainly helped.
All right. Mr. Sixel?
Oh, there's a lot of angst out there about big farms, and I never was one of them. As far as I'm concerned, the state of Wisconsin is responsible for these large mega dairies. They came out, the gurus down in Madison came out with all these rules years ago about the environment. And yeah, there were some bad actors and they needed to be cleaned up. But the expense for all us little guys to keep going, it didn't pay. Which made it easy for larger landowners to buy up land and increase their operations. Yeah, it's too bad. We do have nutrient management rules in this county, but they're not enforced as much as they should be. It would take a complaint-based issue to get somebody to slow down. So with that, am I against them? No, but they need to be highly regulated. Thank you.
All right. We have now arrived at the closing remarks, and you have 90 seconds to make your closing remarks, and we will begin with Mr. Hilsabeck.
Well, thank you all for having me here today. I'll have to admit, this is a little more nerve-wracking than I thought it was going to be, so thanks for having me here, and appreciate your vote in April. Thank you.
Mr. Krueger?
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Thank you for the fellow candidates. And, you know, based on all of my experience, I know I can be a big asset to this board and to this town. because you guys and gals come first. Any community that I've ever lived in, it's always been, we've been a family in that community. And I'm the kind of guy that likes to go around and meet everybody, so, and, yeah, I would like your vote too, and I know my experience is gonna help. And I got one thing to say, I always do this, and if you know the answer, please don't spoil it, but what did Aaron Rodgers say to his girlfriend when he broke up with her? Go Pack. Thank you for listening.
Mr. Feuerstein, it's your turn.
All right. I just want to thank everyone for coming again. You gave up, looks like an hour and a half of your time. We got a good town here, people. We're pretty blessed. Granted, we've got some pretty high-value properties, but, we just go a little bit to the west, and our town gardener has the same. And, they fund their fire department about like what we do. They've got a little higher share than the others. But the only thing I'm going to say is on August 5th, my son gets married. We're going to have probably about 600 people at the wedding. On that evening at dark, nobody get crabby when you come down County C. And the cars are coming out of my driveway because there's going to be a pile of them. All right. Again, thanks for coming, people.
All right, Mr. Sixel.
Yeah. Folks, I've traveled many parts of this country. We have something special here. It's no wonder more and more people are deciding to retire here. With our diverse landscape, with our good roads, our endless water resources, we're lucky. Caveat, did you know that Door County has more contiguous miles of shore frontage than any other county in the nation? And that's interesting, which of course Nasewaupee has a good portion of that. Friends, I couldn't think of a better place to live and work. And that's why I'm asking for your support as your supervisor for the next 2 years. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Smith.
Once again, reiterate everybody else's comments. I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I appreciate the league for putting this on. I think that no matter who gets elected, we're going to work towards making the township a better place to live. And I would just appreciate everybody's support and like to know that, or like you to know that I'm so glad my wife and I decided to move up here 22 years ago. We love it. Thank you.
Thank you. We want to remind you that candidate LaPlante was unable to attend tonight's forum and that his statement was read earlier with the other candidates' opening statements, and it can be reviewed on the forum recording. Thank you, candidates, for participating in tonight's forum and for serving if elected. You are invited to remain for a few minutes after the forum to give the public an opportunity to meet and visit with you personally. Thank you, audience and viewers. Great questions. Well done. We hope this forum has been helpful to you as a voter. Remember, the general election is on April 4th. Current voter and election information can be found at myvote.wi.gov, and there you can access information about voter registration, updating your name or address, absentee voting, polling locations, and what's on your ballot. Thank you to all of you for attending and participating. Please let others know that they can view this forum at LWV Door County, League of Women Voter, lwvdoorcounty.org. Thank you, candidates. Please join me in a round of applause for our candidates.